We're about to go live with Debra Fleet of the Sydney Wildlife Services.
Because funny, Andrew, is such a
at
little
uni
guy.
the other day, there was
got a
a
really resonant
baby
voice.
possum that I guess had separated from its parents, and there was about 3
Whoa,
black
where's that
crows
coming
just
from?
circling
Yeah, I'm
around.
going.
And so the
And then Martin up.
I don't know how to describe his role at uni, but he's in charge of all like the radio equipment and whatnot, so lending it out and singing and all that. He had to pull up wires and get it like rescued. Like he put it in this box and he kept it warm. And this is normally a cold-hearted man. And my class joked, they're like, "Are you sure he wasn't like trying to like deliberately get the crows together?" And I'm like, "No, like he put it in this box, he wrapped it up, he made sure it was like happy and warm."
I'd like to hear him perform.
Next time, you can bring Sydney Wildlife as well.
Okay.
That's who I do think. But we're similar to Wires, but
Is Macquarie Uni in the area that you? Okay.
you probably get more likely to get a response from us than you are from Wires. Sort of depends on the area you are. We're not real
I
good
used
out
to
of the
work
Western
with this
Sydney.
lady who was with wires, and she'd come in all the time. She'd have, little possums and all sorts of animals would come in to work in baskets and.
I think we've all got a wildlife story if we want to bring it into the show. I've got one. Julian's with possums. Nicely, I mean. But, yeah.
Because people come and tell me terrible things
Yeah,
about what they like to do to
fine.
possums,
No,
and
no,
I thought,
I love possums.
And I read on your FAQs suggestions for magpie swooping, and as a cyclist, I was really interested, so I could talk about that as well.
Oh, I'm interested to hear.
There's a foolproof cure to magpie swooping.
Well, I like this. You should read theirs.
It's make friends with the magpie.
Yeah.
They remember.
Works every time.
They remember. They
that doesn't help you if you're a
They
cyclist.
swoop the same
I try also,
people.
but I really
They
like to think
swoop
when little
nice
kids
people.
put boxes on
And
it.
I think magpies remember like 1,000 faces, is
But
it?
also the people put theirs cable ties
Yeah,
on their
that's right,
helmets.
yeah.
It stops them
Smart
coming
birds.
to.
So we can talk about that. That'd be fun if you think it's relevant.
Why do they swoop? Is it
Because it's only for 3 weeks while the babies are in the nest.
Oh, that,
All people have to do is sort of avoid the area
Yeah.
for 3 weeks.
That's 3 weeks off exercise.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Well, you got to go a
3
different
weeks
route.
is a lot.
Different route. But yeah, it's only 3. But while the babies are in the nest, that's when the male ones mostly are really aggressive, and all they're doing is trying to protect their babies. And I think that's what people tend to sort of, people have got these visions. Yes, they have hurt people and they have hurt eyes and whatever.
Yeah.
But people have these visions that everybody gets swooped is going to have their eye poked out.
My daughter-in-law has a family of magpies, and not in the backyard, but in the bush in their backyard. And she's always been really friendly to them and fed them and done all that sort of stuff. And they've always been really. They bring the babies down into the backyard to play. Yeah.
We used to have one that was what's the word for it? Straight directly opposite
Two
our
minutes.
veranda, right? Opposite our veranda, and we would step on the veranda, and you could see the nest was way up the hill, and it would just launch itself straight in a straight beeline straight to our veranda. No, didn't have to flap a wing, just like this.
Knew where to go.
Yes, but yeah, we like to encourage people to interact with wildlife rather than try and eliminate it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the problem is, for some reason, people seem to hate, sometimes they hate our wildlife rather than actually want to enjoy it, and its uniqueness.
It's good to share the space and the land and,
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to tell someone when they've moved into your roof.
Yeah, that's, I don't
But
like
there's
that.
ways of getting them out with kindness.
Wasn't there something about a boa constrictor that was roaming around the western suburbs of Sydney last week?
People are sort of the opinion that it's been faked, but I don't know. No one knows.
No one knows.
Safe people now think
So it's going to be
oh,
like the panther of Penrith.
Yeah.
You've got a boa constrictor and a panther out in the western suburbs.
Is
It's
this
lovely.
a football team? The Penrith
It
team
is.
of the Panthers?
That's right, yeah.
But they've
And that's where the name came from, because they believe they're
Oh, really?
Panthers, yeah.
So do I put this? When do I put?
Oh, whenever everyone
Okay,
else does.
30 seconds. I'm going to do the traffic and weather.
Yeah. That's right,
Play
it's
a
terrible.
10-second intro and then we're ready to go.
Everywhere's horrible at the moment.
Now, there's been a bus breakdown in Cremorne on Military Road at Winnie Street, and that's, well, it's going to make Friday afternoon a little bit rough. One of 3 northbound lanes are closed. And over in Carlingford on Pennant Hills Road, our usual Friday afternoon announcement, at the M2 motorway, there's been a breakdown of a car. The site has been cleared, but once again, heavy traffic conditions, and luckily this time southbound traffic is affected. It was a maximum of 34 today, mostly sunny. 26th of October tomorrow, Saturday, maximum of 32. You're shaking your head over there, Siobhan. Why are you shaking your head?
I am not a heat person. I have been known to faint very easily. I have low blood pressure, and the heat and everything, it just makes me get very dizzy, very...
Okay,
I get very lethargic as well.
I thought you were thinking, oh no, it wasn't that hot.
No, it was too hot. My limit is like 25, maybe 26 is like a good day. I don't want it any higher than that.
Okay, so Saturday it's going to get to 32, a little bit over your limit. Sunday 25, it's cooling down a little bit, and Monday partly cloudy, maximum of 24. And now I'd like to welcome to the studio Debra Fleet from Sydney Wildlife. I'll get you to introduce yourself, Debra.
Oh, hello, my name's Debra Fleet. I'm a wildlife rescuer for Sydney Wildlife, which operates in the Sydney metropolitan area.
Okay, so when you say operates, what does that mean?
It just means that when a member of the public finds an animal in distress, a native animal in distress, they can ring us and they can ask us to go and help them with that problem. Sometimes it's in their house, but sometimes it's out on the, they've just been out on the street and they found something out on the street. So they can call the central number and they will find a person who's a member of Sydney Wildlife in that area who can go and help them with that.
Okay, and obviously this is, rescuing wildlife is something not really intended for the man in the street or the woman in the street. You're running some courses.
Yes, we are. If people are interested in becoming a wildlife rescuer or carer, they can enrol in our course that's happening on the 8th and the 9th of November in Waverton, and they can learn how to rescue and care for the general, I guess, regular native wildlife that comes under our care. And if they find that they like that and they get an interest in it, then there's other courses they can do later on. For instance, if they're interested in rescuing macropods, which are kangaroos and wallabies, they can do another course later on to do that. Or they can, if they're interested in reptiles, they can learn how to go out and retrieve snakes from people's yards and out.
Okay, I bags the kangaroos, okay.
There's a lot of people who like snakes.
I'm sure, I especially since Harry Potter came along, yeah.
Yes, well, they're very intriguing snakes because they don't have eyelids and they don't blink, so it's people sort of find that disconcerting. They look at them, but then they're so beautiful with their markings.
They are. So the thing about this too is obviously you wouldn't just learn how to care for the animals or in a rescue situation, but you must have to learn a lot about the animals themselves.
What we tend to find is people who like doing animal rescue tend to have an affinity for animals in general, so that they're used to animals. But it doesn't mean that you have to have experience with animals. It's just that you have to be ready to do the right thing. If the animal's injured, you need to take it to a vet and let the vet treat it. You're not going to be an alternative vet. What you are is, once the vet has decided on the treatment, you can take the animal home and you follow the course of treatment that the vet prescribes. But also it's just a matter of relocating. Sometimes animals get in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's just a matter of judging the situation and seeing whether possibly you can help by moving them to a different location close to where you found them.
So tell me, Deb or Debra, what do you prefer?
Deb's fine.
Right.
Deb, what's a typical day for you in the trade, so to speak, as the heat comes up like today?
What we find is at the moment it's baby bird season.
Right.
So what we'll find is that we'd have a lot of baby birds, maybe with the wind, get blown out of their nests and end up on the ground. And so one issue for that is to try to reunite them with their parents, because baby birds do better with their own parents than you as their substitute parent. Sometimes animals need help because of the heat, because they need some rehydration. Sometimes some birds might have had a motor vehicle accident and they just need a little bit of helping and care. And if they end up on the ground and they're there for maybe a few days, they get very hot, and you need to bring them in and into care and help them get over that trauma.
And have you got a story you could share with us about an animal that you wouldn't expect to see in that area or place, like a tiger in Pennant Hills, you know what I mean, the extreme,
Or a panther in Penrith.
Look, one time I was called to a place in Carlingford where they said there was a wallaby in someone's backyard, and I thought that possibly someone had maybe mistaken it for a big possum. So I went to this backyard in Carlingford, and sure enough, there was a wallaby there, and it was in the yard was abandoned, and it was been drinking out of like a pool that was half full, and so I had to then call in the macropod rescuers and get them to come and help with the rescue. But the wallaby what it actually was not a species that we normally find in this area. It was what they call a red-necked wallaby. Right. Whereas normally around here we get swamp wallabies.
Okay, we're going to take a little break now, play some spots, and we'll be back talking to Debra Fleet from Sydney Wildlife in just a moment.
That's good. Yeah, they're good stories, those ones. I had a friend of mine in Pennant Hills, he had a wallaby, twice he came back and it was in his pool. He'd get up every morning, they were obviously coming in and drink water out of the pool.
What was it?
A wallaby.
Oh, yeah.
In sort of, probably about 1.5 kilometres from the real bush, and about 500 metres from Pennant Hill Station.
Well, this one I expected to be a swamp wallaby when I found it, but I looked at it and I went, no, you're not. You're a red. We just think someone picked it up and had brought it home and raised it, and then it had got out somehow.
I had the most embarrassing thing ever happen to me. So I lived in Korea for 1.5 years, and there's a free zoo that you can go to. So I was walking around. Yes, you are correct. That is the word. And we were walking around, and there was a kangaroo looking thing, and I was like, oh, Australia, this is so cool, because 10-hour plane trip away, and we got to, and we read it, it says wallaroo. I'm like, what's a wallaroo? What's that? That's not Australian, what's that? Yeah. I was reading, it was like obviously a wallaby cross kangaroo, and here I am with my American friend from she's from Montana, and I was like, I didn't even know about my own country, and I felt so ashamed of myself.
There's always something like that, isn't there?
I think I made a mistake with the dates for that course. So I was going to fix
2nd and 3rd of November is Saturday and Sunday.
So I think it's the 9th and the 10th. Yes.
The week after.
So I can fix that. I just need to fix that. Sorry, it was just I didn't have my cheat sheet for the thing. So I should have gone on to that. The Powerful Owl.
We can.
In Castle Towers.
Yeah. Well, we'll go straight to that when we come back. You want to introduce that?
Yeah, sure.
Got 1 minute.
Plenty
Won't
of
start
time.
just yet then.
With the swim season nearly here, I'd like to stress the importance of proper maintenance and care to maximise your enjoyment. Our expert pool technicians can help you make sure of the right pool quality, cleaning methods and equipment, filter maintenance, cost-effective pool chemicals and more. See full details on our website at duralpoolshop.com.au, or better still, drop in and see me and the gang at Shop 2, 270 New Line Road, Dural. We'll help you to get your pool just how you want it. Proud sponsors of Triple H 100.1 FM.
We're talking to Debra Fleet from Sydney Wildlife.
And Debra, we were discussing before the wallaby in Carlingford. Tell us a bit about the powerful owl trapped in Castle Towers Mall.
Well, I got a phone call where I work, because I'm a teacher, so they asked me to go after school to check out that someone had reported an owl in the Castle Towers shopping centre, and I went to have a look, and it's a very large centre with really high roofs and things, and sure enough they had it was perched above a kiosk in one of the long passageways there. And the problem with that, of course, is that how do we get the bird down? It's still able to fly, and we had to sit there and try to think of a way that we could encourage the bird to come down and then go out through the car park.
And how'd you do it?
Well, it was there for quite a few days, and every day I would go back and check to make sure it was okay. And then we came up with a plan which involved trying to tempt it down with a stuffed possum. And trying to tempt it down, but no one's ever done this before, so it's one of those situations where and it was really good because the centre management was very keen to help us, and we took a lot of advice from lots of different powerful owl experts.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we did try was playing a call that the powerful owls would make out near where the car park was, and this bird all of a sudden decided it swooped down and it made it out through the car park doors.
Wow.
Which is so very exciting because we didn't have to sort of sit there and watch it starve to death, or because we're trying to.
It didn't just swoop straight back in again.
No, well, we don't even know how it got in there, but because it was just a bit of a mystery. But we assume it came in through the car park, maybe chasing a rat or something. We don't know. Made a mistake. Yeah.
Debra, is there a rat poison issue in Sydney?
There is. We've got people have done a lot of scientific studies to have a look at why some of our very iconic birds, such as kookaburras and ravens, but also boobook owls and other sorts of owls, there's been a very large reduction in their numbers. And one of the issues they've found is that the people have changed to using rat baits, which we call second generation, and they poison the owls as well as the rats. So if an animal that's out and poisoned is eaten or caught by one of these owls, or even mice, where the kookaburras will eat mice, the poison will go into the animal and kill them as well. There's alternatives to these poisons that we call them first generation, and they include warfarin. So if people are worried about rats, and there's a lot of number of things that they can do to actually reduce the number of rats in their garden, and if they are going to use a poison, then they need to look on the ingredients and look for warfarin-based ones as opposed to these other ones. BirdLife Australia has a brochure, and it gives the whole sort of list of all the things you can do to reduce rats in your yard, as well as the kinds of other things you can use, like looking for what to look for on the label. Because it'd be a really shame if the wildlife that we find so iconic is being basically killed silently by these poisons.
The second generation ones, because I know, I cannot stand the sound of rodents in my roof.
Yes.
That's time to pull out the nuclear option. But obviously, you know, we need to be very careful about what we do.
It is. So the ones that, the first generation ones, are available still, fortunately. It's just that it wasn't understood until recently what exactly these second generation ones and the effect they're having on their wildlife. And there's a lot of movement at the moment to try and push for them not to be available. But it's not just in Australia, it's in America as well, where these poisons have had a really big effect on the wildlife there as well.
So look, the course that you're running again in November, what are the dates for that?
Oh, sorry, it was the 9th and the 10th of November at Waverton, and if that's not suited to people or it's a bit too early, we're running another one again in February in Centennial Park. But if you went to the Sydney Wildlife website, sydneywildlife.org.au, you can see a link that says Become a Carer, and it shows you the available courses for you to enrol.
And just briefly again, what are you going to learn if you do this course?
You'd learn how to rescue your typical animals such as possums, all kinds of birds, how to rescue baby birds and what to do, you know, in terms of bringing them up, or restoring them to their parents. You'd learn about rescuing lizards and turtles. Not snakes. You have to do a special course for snakes because we don't want people to go out to a snake rescue to thinking it's a python and find out it's a venomous snake.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for your time this afternoon, Deb. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners?
I just would like to make a pitch for people to respect our wildlife and actually value it for its uniqueness. We get a lot of people who see them just as some sort of pest, and we find that if we can try and educate people and talk to them about their uniqueness, that they often see that they think of it in a different way, and also try to think of habitat you can have in your yard and your garden that would be beneficial to native wildlife. That's really what I'd like to say.
Okay, well, thanks for your time this afternoon, Deb. We're going to go out with another Halloween tune. This is Percy Sledge, Dark End of the Street.
Thanks, Deb.
Is it my imagination or is that air conditioning turned off?
I think it's turned off.
How'd I go?
I mean, it's still pretty warm.
Can we do a photo thing again?
Oh, yeah, we're at.
Yeah, want me to take it?
Oh,
Do you want me to-
Yes,
oh,
please.
is it-
Yeah, we've got about 2-3 minutes.
What do you teach? I teach science.
Yeah. Just turn this up. I thought you might be teaching science.
I know, the good
I
one.
teach earth and environmental science.
Oh, really?